Okay, guys, and we are back with another episode of Flawless Finance going live with the CEO, episode 15. And like we normally do in these live streams, talk about a wide range of topics. I know even recently it's been mostly sports based, but we'll talk about basketball, football, movies, business, economics, politics, etc. And we'll, just sort of go through the news and see what takes our fancy. Anything that interests us, we'll talk about it. So yeah, that's typically what we do on these streams. So let's get straight into it. We're going to be looking at the best landing spots for these NBA 5 free agents that are still on the market. And to kick that off, we've got Markelle Fultz to the OKC Thunder. Now this is an interesting one where we saw Markelle Fultz saw his last role in the Magic. He saw his efficiency really dip last season. And he had some knee issues, some injuries, so he wasn't able to be a constant in that side and was in and out due to those issues. He's still really trying to find that consistent jump shot. That's always been an issue for Fultz since he came into the league. It was really weird because in college it was silky smooth, but he's come to the league and it's really not worked out for him in terms of his jump shot consistently falling, and that's something that he'll need to be, rectified if he's going to have real staying power and really be able to contribute to any team that he's on. He's still young, he's only 26, but the NBA is certainly cutthroat and, they don't care how old you are. If you're 26, 27, 28, if you can't provide that team with value, they're not going to keep you around. And you could be a talented player with a lot going for him, and in a couple of seasons you could find yourself without a deal and out the league. So it's definitely something that Fultz, I'm sure, is aware of and, should be working to try and improve, because Fultz with a jump shot is a nice backup guard for a lot of teams in the league. There's no denying that for me. Fultz, he's able to play make. He's only 6'4". I say only 6'4". He's not the biggest, but he's certainly not the smallest. He's a nice floor general, sorry. He can navigate the floor nicely. He's got a decent cadence and he is a decent athlete as well. He can get up, he can get past his defender. Not the quickest though, but against, your middling NBA wings or guards, he can blow past them quite nicely. I imagine Fultz at the OKC Thunder, I think his minutes would be sparse, where you've got SGA, Caruso, Wiggins, Isaiah Joe in the rotation at these sort of spots. So, adding Fultz to the team would help, the playmaking, of course, dribble drives, pull-ups. That would help that team, because their current lineup at the moment sort of favours a player who's able to take advantages of those opportunities that are being created, but from the gravity of them other players in the team. It makes sense for Fultz to come into the Thunder. He'll be the 15th roster spot, and that will really be the make or break for him if he's willing to accept that 15th man roster spot. Like I'm saying, because there are other guards ahead of him. There are other guards that offensively can provide more, defensively can provide more of a physical presence. I wouldn't say any of the guards ahead of him are necessarily better playmakers, but that's all he's really got going for him. Apart from SGA, of course. The other guards, he's probably the second best playmaker they've got, but you've got someone like Caruso who's a dog on defense, and isn't terrible offensively, can give you something offensively. Fultz is going to be quite far down on the pecking order, but that'll be what happens. I mean, with the departure of Josh Giddey, that even more just makes that argument for Fultz to join, because you've got one less ball handler now, and neither Caruso or Wiggins really are that ball heavy, ball dominant style of guard, which if you're resting SGA, you need another one. So could be certainly interesting, and I think if Fultz does go to the Thunder and the Thunder potentially have an issue, someone gets banned for a couple games or injured, you've got Fultz, who's a nice guard who can come into the team, start playmaking, can run the ball, run the offense a bit. He won't necessarily be the best at finishing plays because he's, like I said, in that jump shot from earlier, it's not consistent yet. So he's not going to be amazing at that. But everything else, offensively, he can pretty much deliver on. So I'd be super interested to know what you guys think of Markel Fultz and if you think he'd be a good fit for the OKC Thunder. Let's see who we've got next. Okay, Justin Holiday to the Sacramento Kings. Okay, let's see what they're saying about Justin Holiday. So Justin Holiday's entering. He's 35, going to be 35 this season. Wow. He seems like, from what I can see, the quintessential 3-and-D. He's someone who can, in theory, hit threes. And, sort of someone who can hold his own on defense as well. Holiday is someone who can be more than the concept of a 3-and-D. He, can provide a bit more and be more of a dynamic option as well. He's quite athletic. Even though he's 35, he's still got a bit in the tank in terms of his athleticism. His defensive utility is quite appealing. He's 6'6" at 180. And he showed that he can at least lock in. And he's not going to, fall asleep on defense like some other wings who are. It's interesting because you get some players who are so good offensively, that's sort of where all their brain width goes. They don't really try and lock in on defense because they know come the ball's on the other side on the court, they'll be able to deliver. Justin Holiday is certainly not someone who rests on his laurels and defensively can hang. He's going to be going against. He's a forward, so he's going to be going against players who are going to be bigger than him and stronger than him. Because you're a wing, you're a forward. You're going to be playing those one-on-one matchups. He may struggle. He may get bullied from time to time, but he's able to lock in and at least try. He might get dunked on or whatever. That's not going to deter him. Other players might drop. Try and avoid the smoke after that, but Justin Holiday will be right back in there the next play. Holiday had good minutes last season at the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets turned to Holiday over Peyton Watson during the second round of the playoffs. And even though the Nuggets lost, Holiday's minutes were, by and large, quite a pleasant surprise. I'm sure Denver will sort of be annoyed to be losing him. Because he looked like he would be a decent little role player for them, unfortunately. But the Kings would be very interested in using a 15th roster spot to sign him. The emergence of Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis, as well as the improvement from De'Aaron Fox, the Sacramento Kings, like most teams, will always have room for another, 3-and-D player. And last season, when Holiday would get hot, he would, really start to knock down that three ball. And in Denver, he shot 40% from three, which is, even on just a few attempts a game, if you can get someone who can shoot 41 or 40% from three and defensively can hold his own, and if you can get him on a minimum contract, as a free agent, you can get him on a minimum contract, $2 or $3 million, it's worthwhile. Even at that 15th roster spot, for me, I think it's worthwhile. Be super interested to know what you guys think of Justin Holiday and if you think him going to the Sacramento Kings will be a good move. Yeah, super interested, so let me know. Okay, what else have we got here? Isaac Okoro to the Cleveland Cavaliers, a restricted free agent. This is an interesting one because Isaac Okoro to stay at the Cleveland Cavaliers, it'll be interesting to see if they can make this work. Because not a lot of teams. A few teams do have their non-tax player mid-level exception available, and I think Okoro would be available for that sort of money, if worst comes to worst. But I think he still does best fit the Cleveland Cavaliers just because of that's where he's been, and he's got a good chemistry with the rest of the team. Good chemistry with who are the guys they got there? Jared, Garland, their guard there. Seems like he's got a nice little relationship with him, and they can play. They can play well with each other. The fit isn't as right on come playoff time. I appreciate that. But Okoro has shown that he can drill wide open threes in the regular season. You know, shooting 39% from three after come the new year. Defenses still kind of sleep on him. It seems like, I think... Now, don't get twisted. When you're facing the Cleveland Cavaliers, you've got a lot to worry about. You know, you've got Mobley, you've got Garland, you've got Mitchell who's there. You've got issues when you're facing the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I can understand why other teams are really using a lot of that, you know, bandwidth on those other players. But you can't sleep on Okoro. You can't just leave him open from three. You know, they're treating him like a non-threat, but if you leave him wide open, he'll drill it. And he'll be wet from water and shoot an above league average at, like you said, nearly 40% after 40% come the new year. He was out here knocking down threes. So Cleveland don't have the pecking order flexibility to increase his on-ball possessions. I mean, I do agree, and that renders Okoro less valuable to the Cavs. It doesn't make him entirely dispensable though. Like I said, when you've got someone who quite physical and can knock down wide open threes, you're going to have a bit of value, in my opinion. You're not going to be entirely dispensable, and if that value means you're a piece to a trade, then that is a value. You know, you're only completely unvaluable when you've not got a team. As long as you've got a team and you're getting minutes, you can even if you're using a trade that gets like some second round picks, like there's value in that. There is. But Okoro will be eating up significant regular season minutes. And meanwhile, while he's doing that, Cleveland doesn't really have someone who can readily replace Okoro in terms of what he does on defense against rival guards. Unless they're willing to really put some faith in Jalen Tyson, their rookie. But let's see. I think Cleveland would be the most logical place for him to stay. He could sign his nearly $12 million qualifying offer and roll the dice in unrestricted free agency come next summer. He could do that. But if he doesn't, then I could see maybe a team like Utah or Brooklyn making sense. But yeah, it'd be super interesting to know what you guys think of Isaac Okoro, and if you think his fit is still best at Cleveland or where you'd like to see him go. Be super interested to hearing that. Let me know. And next we have Cedi Osman, the Los Angeles Lakers. Another really interesting sort of suggestion here. Cedi has more layers to his offensive game than you might think. He can knock down open threes. I mean, and nowadays in the league, that's providing value in itself. If you can have someone at that 15th roster spot that, if all they do is knock wide open threes, you can give them garbage time, you can run some plays, get them open and get them to knock it down. But Osman can also use a couple of dribbles to get to and finish around the basket, even through traffic, especially when catching the ball in stride. Over the past 3 seasons, the 29-year-old is downing more than 57% of his twos and shooting 37% from threes. Just 7 other players have hit those marks while also draining as many trays as Osman. And he's here with some elite company here. You know, Duncan Robinson, a bucket. Corey Kispert, a bucket. Michael Porter Jr. and Kevin Durant. You know, these guys are serious buckets. Serious bucket getters and players that teams will look upon. You know, Corey Kispert at the Wizards, the type of guy you'll draft and you know that he won't be your number one option. He'll probably never be your number one option, but he's a guy who's more than capable of getting the ball and getting a bucket. And like I said, if you can do that in today's league, there's value in that. There's 100% value in that. And like I said, that list of players I just named, you're looking at a number of useful NBA players, and Cedi Osman is worth a roster spot for rotations in rotations in need of shot making from the wing positions, which I think the Lakers do need. I think it's not fair to keep having that burden on LeBron at this age. 14. LeBron's amazing, but we want LeBron to still be around. So we're gonna have to protect him, protect his minutes, protect him for himself. Because I know LeBron, he's a game competitor. He's gonna want to be on the floor, every minute of every game. But I'm sure JJ Redick will sort of be looking to protect LeBron's minutes, and we'll see what they do there. Because there isn't really anyone in the Lakers at the moment that's really considered a knockdown shooter in terms of their wings. LeBron, I wouldn't really regard as a knockdown shooter. He's respectable from three, but he's no sniper. He can knock down threes though. You can't sleep on him from three. Don't get it twisted. But in terms of wings and combos, who else? Reeves, yeah, but that's really about it, unfortunately. So Usman would upgrade their spacing at a minimum. Worst case scenario, he's someone who can space the floor, and I imagine I know he's quite athletic, so he'll run the floor and run about and be a body for those plays, and I think his willingness to move without the ball should cleanly fit in with head coach JJ Redick's offensive tenets. Ultimately, we don't know what JJ Redick as a coach is going to look like, but assuming on based how he played as a player and how he talks about the game, I imagine that Usman would be a good sort of fit for him. At the moment, the LA Lakers already have 15 guaranteed contracts on the books. And it'll have to grease the wheels of Jackson Hayes, Christian Wood or Cam Reddish trade to make room for Usman. A minor nuisance that, as of now, is absolutely worth doing for them. I'd be super interested to know what you think of Cedi Usman. Do you think he'd be a good fit for the Lakers? Or where else do you think he should go? Be super curious to know what you guys think. Let me know. And lastly, we have Dennis Smith Jr. to the Utah Jazz. Now, this is another interesting one. You got another guard here. Dennis Smith Jr. has parlayed his athleticism into exhaustive defense at the point of attack. Relative to what he was doing, what he was going to cost, in fact, he's the player on the list whose continued availability is surprising. I completely agree. A player like Dennis Smith, who, the athlete that he is, the effort he provides, I'm interested. I'm surprised he's still a free agent. I guess, like everyone in the free agency list, he's got his limitations. If you were the perfect player, believe me, a team would have signed you. But super interesting, the Utah Jazz already have plenty of guards on their roster. But that shouldn't matter. Nobody defends like Dennis Smith Jr. Nobody that the Utah Jazz have at the moment is really defending like Dennis Smith Jr. Chris Dunn is a very good defender. He's an acceptable defender, I'll say, and he got sent to the Clippers, which does, sort of open up that spot for Dennis Smith Jr., but he can't guard up the same way, but he's someone who can be thrown on the opposition's best backcourt player while also providing rim pressure at the other end, because he's an athlete, he's game, he's aggressive on the ball, aggressive off the ball, not always aggressive on the ball, to be fair. I don't think he's the guard who you can really, and to be honest, Utah Jazz won't be looking to give him the keys. We know that. He can play though, keep him. He's the sort of player I'd want to have in my squad if I was the Utah Jazz. I wouldn't be asking him to do typical floor general stuff, and I wouldn't be asking him to consistently knock down threes. You need to know what you're getting with him. And I think at this point in his career, you do sort of know he's a 27-year-old free agent guard. I think you do know what you're getting with him. He's not an incredible floor general. He's not a sniper. I think he can do those things at an acceptable level to the point where he's not unplayable. But there are levels to this. Utah has Keontae George to develop, as well as Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson to fill their offensive quota. So that can let that take the the guard offensive burden off Dennis Smith Jr. and let Dennis Smith really defend and worry about that. if the Jazz are serious about not being totally invested in winning next season and wanting to continue to build, at least one of the two latter players in Sexton and Jordan Clarkson will probably finish the year on a new team. Therefore, even more so, opening up an opportunity to the soon-to-be 27-year-old Dennis Smith Jr. So yeah, I'd be super curious to know what you guys think of Dennis Smith Jr. Do you think he's a good fit for the Jazz? Or where else do you think he could go? I think he's an interesting player and could definitely land or wind up at, potentially a few different teams. But yeah, I'd be super interested to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. Okay, what we got next? What have we got next? Nothing too crazy here. Well, actually, it would be interesting. We could talk about. So the other day, I recently rewatched the first Terminator film that was in cinemas. I think it was the 40th anniversary from the first Terminator film. I think that came out in 1984, I suppose, so yeah, 40th anniversary. A film that I just love. It's super interesting to me. I certainly understand the love for Terminator 2 because I think it's one of the quintessential sci-fi films of a generation and does a lot of things right. In terms of it being a sequel to the first film, they really do sequel it up. They go bigger, they go better, they go badder, they go to that next level in the sequel, but there's something just so grounded about the first film that I just loved. So I watched that the other day and it really just reminded me how different the two films are and how much I really prefer the first one. I've always preferred the first one. Of course, like I'm saying, I understand the love for the second one, but I love the first one because it feels so small scale. It feels so genuine. It's got that soul about it that James Cameron was making this on, even back then, what was probably considered a shoestring budget. And yeah, just making that film happen. And it's not much of a sci-fi, to be honest. There's sci-fi elements of it, of course. But the second one is full sci-fi. This one is more of a horror sort of thriller sort of film where it's just executed so well, so it feels like it's so much more than that. And it is. But in terms of the skeleton, to use a pun, in terms of the skeleton of the story, it is very, typical thriller, unstoppable enemy, main characters on the run, trying to survive. It is very much that. But nonetheless, in my opinion, the first Terminator film is the best. In my opinion, that's just what I think. I think a lot of the other films are probably overhated on. The new ones are particularly bad. The new ones are particularly bad, but the first two were great. The third one wasn't too bad. The fourth one was really different, and even though it wasn't a film that I've gone back and watched loads, I've watched it a couple of times, and I appreciate them trying to do something different with the franchise. I certainly appreciate that. But the first Terminator film is amazing to me. Arnie's performance is a bit shaky at times. I think he's not quite nailed being the Terminator yet. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily the best Terminator performance, but it's the best Terminator film. I remember there being a couple scenes when, Arnie's shooting the gun, and he's making these these sort of facial movements, like he's shocked or like he's sort of braced himself like he's a robot. He shouldn't do that, but he does. Obviously, gives the iconic line, "I'll be back," in the film. There's no beating that. It's just amazing. That's the first time you hear it, and yeah, that's it. It's just the best. And yeah, so the first Terminator film I watched recently, and yeah, for me it's my favourite. But be super curious to know what you guys think of the Terminator films. I imagine a lot of you are going to tell me, yeah, the second one is the best. But yeah, let's have that conversation. I'm super interested to know what you guys think of that. Let me know in the comments below. But that's going to be it from me for now. And been great talking to you guys. And I'm out. Peace.